What is up, y'all? Manny, Carrera, your real estate resource, and this is episode number 31 of Whiskey Wednesday podcast sessions, where we sit with entrepreneurs, influencers, movers, and shakers over a glass of some fine whiskey. Today, we are going to be doing our first ever Zoom interview with our good friend. We met this gentleman out in Miami at Agent 2021 for Gary Vaynerchuk's really cool event for realtors, insurance brokers, and two other genres. This gentleman is from Orange County, currently practicing real estate in Las Vegas. He has his own podcast as well. Give it up, you guys, for Jon Salas. Johnny, what's up, brother? Welcome to the show.
Manny, appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah, cheers, man. I know you're right now in Vegas, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm in Vegas.
So you are virtually giving me a cheers right now. You're drinking on some whiskey too. For respect to the show, I appreciate it.
Out of respect, brother. Yeah, I'm a fellow whiskey enthusiast, so
that's awesome.
It's only appropriate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Johnny, you are going to be drinking some Makers, right? You're drinking Makers out there?
I'm drinking a Maker's 12 year, I believe.
That's
and
awesome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I'm pretty sure they make a 12 year, which is what I'm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really smooth. I'm going to be drinking out here some Basil Hayden's. This is one of my favorite. I don't know if you've had it yet, but I actually got it in this cool decanter right here. I'm gonna show you.
Oh.
Yeah, so there's a little boat in there. So man, 12 years in the business. That's freaking insane.
It's crazy to say that, man. Yeah, it feels. I mean, I know I don't look it, man. People look at me.
Yeah, bro, you look like you're 18, fresh out of high school.
Oh, no, dude. I know. But yeah, I turned 30, man, and 12 years in any business, we'll put some. I mean, I don't have any gray hairs, but it'll do it.
Yeah, some internal gray hairs. They're coming soon.
Yeah. So
man.
Yeah, that's where I'm at today, man.
That's awesome. So, talk to me a little bit about that, because I've been doing real estate for 2 years, a little over 2 years. I didn't get to see all the stuff that happened 2006, 2007, 2008,
Yeah.
Talk to me, what was that like for a realtor, in California, in Las Vegas? What was that like?
I mean, I think a lot of families that went through it, that got affected, it was some real dark times. I think I think I felt it very, very heavily because my family was very invested and over leveraged in real estate, especially my father. And so when that subprime market took a crash, the dynamics of our family also was very much aligned with that. And so from the real estate perspective, it was a huge opportunity because I came into it fresh. I didn't know any better. I just knew that, like, okay, this thing was happening. It was obviously during just some very dark financial times, but I didn't know any better. I just thought this is a cycle.
What you came into. Yeah.
I came into it. I didn't know I didn't know I couldn't cold call or I couldn't door knock. Like, I just went into it like green as they can be and just put in work. And so that's kind of what led me to be, one of the top agents in my my firm that first year, because of the fact that I just was just relentless. While everybody was getting out of the business, I was just getting into it with a fresh new perspective. Being, 18 years old, I was like the youngest agent in my area. And so, yeah, man, like, I think the market itself was, if I could remember when I first got in, it was like, I mean, it was so easy, man, because there was anybody could afford a home. I mean, if you had, like I said, if you had two legs and two hands,
pulse.
Yeah, man, they were doing these stated income loans, which if you just, I mean, I remember, I think my dad gave me, like, my dad was making some good money back in the day, and he dropped like 50 grand in my bank account and was like, hey, we're going to buy this condo. I was like, all right, but I don't have any income. Like I was like 17 at the time. He's like, it's fine. It's good. Drops 50 grand in my bank account. We go get a loan and I qualify for a $500,000 home. Yeah, dude. And so it was like, I didn't understand it back then. Right. Cause I was so young, and I was just like, well, okay, this is cool. This is how it works. My dad, I trust him. But that's what literally was happening all over the United States.
And that's what caused the crash. Everyone had houses.
People that couldn't afford homes were affording homes. And it was all, a really, really good, I don't know. Have you seen that movie? It's called The Big Short.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's
exactly what it was.
Yeah, for all the listeners out there, you got to check it out. The Big Short. And man, that if you, it's like a really, really good, it's just like breakdown of what happened in like in a digestible way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
In a Hollywood, with a Hollywood little touch, right?
yeah.
So
So yeah, that's kind of how it was back then, man. Yep.
that's insane, man. Obviously you hear the crash is coming again. There's another crash. Um, Kind of going off of, bouncing off of what you first came into the crash, and then being into the real estate market for a couple years now that it's, settled, you've gotten your feet wet.
Yeah.
Going into the crash, going into another crash, how do you feel? Are you ready? Are you more prepared? What have you learned going into the last one that would kind of help you going into the next one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that I would be careful to call it a crash. I think I would be more on the maybe calling it a correction more than anything.
Right.
To call it a crash, I mean, all the economic indicators aren't there to say we're in another massive crash. Like we have a huge pending crash. Of course, a lot of people back, in 2006 thought it would never crash. Like we just thought it was going to continue. I mean, literally you could buy $1 million home and gain 20%, year over year. So like you bought $1 million home, you could sell it for $1.2 million the next year and pocket that cash.
Yeah.
And so it was not sustainable. I would say today, we're currently experiencing a small correction, right? Like the Fed said they're going to be putting out maybe two, and at the end of the year, there may be 2 more bump ups in the interest rates. So we might be well over 5%, which will affect that in a typical way. So I always tell people, right? Because I think as real estate agents, that's like the most common question in conversations. Like, okay, so how's the market, right?
Right.
I mean, the honest, genuine, most authentic response I have is like, nobody has that crystal ball, right? In my local market, I can tell you exactly, the trends and what's the last 90 days, last 6 months, last couple years. Ultimately, those are it's just a really good indicator of where the future might go. But in reality, something happens tomorrow.
We don't know.
Yeah. So like, I'm definitely not a doomsdayer. But to answer your question, I think the difference is not being over leveraged. I think that was the huge takeaway, because my family lost everything, man. And not only that, I saw other families lose everything. And so, it's easy when the times are good and you're making a ton of money, it's easy to just think that that's always that it's not going to stop.
Right.
But you have to be able to there's got to be a balance. I think there's lessons to be taken from generations before us. My grandfather, that generation of, they came from a different place. They came from a place of scarcity. I'd say the baby boomer generation came from a place of abundance, and we are kind of somewhere in between that, being the millennial generation, right? We saw our parents go through some tough times, and we're very hesitant to
careful, right? We're very
careful.
Very cautious, I think.
Yeah. Which is a trend with first-time home buyers. You see that, the millennial home buyers, very cautious, man. Very cautious.
That's actually what right before we recorded, we actually just finished recording a content video directed straight to millennials, basically off what the event talked about, Agent 2021. Millennials, they're buying houses right now, but they're very cautious and they're taking a little longer than usual. So I think understanding who's buying houses right now and how to speak to them, directly, is definitely going to help us position ourselves. What I think is really crazy is that you started 12 years ago, and like you mentioned, door knocking, cold calling,
Traditional.
We are in a different day and age right now, right? Where the average new agent, I mean, those things definitely help, but my advice to new agents is definitely different than, maybe it would have been 10 years ago, door knocking, things like that. Where do you think the market has gone for new agents 12 years ago to new agents in 2019?
Yeah, really good question, man. I think, look, we met at Agent 2021. I would say we're the minority when it comes to the future of real estate marketing and where it's going.
Definitely.
I got in the business and everybody told me cold call, door knock, network, get in front of people, which I think is tried and true. Those are parts of the marketing wheel, a spoke on the marketing wheel that is a staple. And I think it really it comes down to what strengths do you have that's going to be highlighted, right? So to me, it's one of those things. A lot of people are uncomfortable cold calling. A lot of people are uncomfortable door knocking. They don't, right? I literally just finished a content piece that talks about, why 90% of the agents get out of the business in the first 4 years, right?
Right.
To me, it's because you have to understand, like, when it comes to real estate marketing, like, this is a lead generation business, right?
Yeah.
So the attention was much different 12 years ago. If you look at it, like 12 years ago, we didn't have a lot of the technology we have today.
Right.
And so my advice is, and because I feel like we're revamping, like we're starting over our team, everything we're doing, it's kind of like we're starting from ground zero, because everything was predicated. Like, I built a call center that just straight up boiler room, hammering phone calls all day long, scripts, the whole Tom Ferry, just like hammering, and it works. It works.
At the time, and the things that work, especially the things like door knocking and things like that, those things I think will never go away. I think never take those things away.
Mm-hmm. But I think Gary hits it on the head, is like, you got to go where the attention is, right? We communicate in a way where, we're scrolling all day long. So my advice is to any new agent is, how are you going to make, how do you stop the scroll, right? How do you stop the scroll? How do you get people's attention? And today that's on social media, that's all online. And it's, I think, something Gary said, I was actually watching the recap video, his 6-hour long vlog that he did.
I was watching it too.
Yeah, I was watching like crazy but that's the point. We literally, on my drive from Cali to Vegas, I spent 4 hours listening to that. Like, can you imagine what that's just crazy, right? That you would actually listen to one piece of content for 4 hours straight. That's just where.
And he put it out there, like, somebody's going to listen to it. I wonder who's going to listen to it.
and there we are listening to it. But one thing that I liked that he said was, we're still doing mailers. It's just, we're doing mailers, in 2019, right? Like, the attention was people's attention was at home, and that was the way to get in front of them. Today, it's Facebook, it's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's podcasting, and really, I think it's thinking outside the box. He was talking about, how do you, I think everybody that's going to be jumping into the podcasting, YouTube, we're going to have an influx of a lot of people doing that, because of just where a lot of the early adopters of this are going to get in.
Yeah.
But it's going to be the people that are doing things differently, like you with the Whiskey Wednesday, me with the Social Agent podcast. I'm looking at starting another podcast called Hustle OC, where it's just going to be entrepreneurs, and we're talking strictly on their hustle. And so you got to start thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And the difference is that today the attention is just living somewhere else.
It's everywhere. Yeah. And I think it's really, crazy to talk to agents that have been doing real estate as long as you and still haven't caught on to what's happening. There's definitely a lot of agents out there that I think are missing it completely. But the agents that are, you could be 50 years old, 60 years old, and as long as you understand what's going on, I think you could really make it. The tools out there that are available to us, you said it, we're still doing mailers just in 2019. I could tell you that I get DMs and DM about 20 to 30 new DMs per day, new conversations just going back and forth. And it's crazy when you could put a number like that on it compared to how long or how many letters you'd have to send out to talk to 30 people, brand new people a day. It's really crazy. It's really crazy.
Well, I think there's a fine line, because to be honest, I think there's a way to actually merge the two. We're actually starting to look at how can we merge our traditional marketing, AKA, let's say, mailers, and use that, because we know it still works, in a way that will invite them to so if I send out, we obviously do weekly to bi-monthly mailers, and it has got all the typical stuff, right? Just listed, just sold. You got your typical market report and all that. But what if you were to do on the back of it, have a big push on inviting them to, your social media. So that's kind of, I think, where there's a nice, I think if you can merge the two, because, you know, one piece of mailer, they throw in the trash, they see it, it's done. Your YouTube channel, something where it says, hey, come check us out there, and you actually get them to do that, then I think that's where the value really starts, you know, 10xing, because now that one piece of mailer that I spent to just invite them to our YouTube channel, if they start following along, or my Instagram or whatever, then I think that's where it's really becomes really, really powerful.
Yeah, I think so too, because you're resonating them, you're resonating and getting them attached to something that they're wanting to get attached to, you know? And that's actually, that's a really good point. I feel the same way with my marketing budget. We're actually coming up with some new signs right now for around the city.
Nice.
And instead of just being, you know, the typical, I'm a realtor thinking about buying a house, I'm going to have 3 different signs, one promoting the real estate business, one promoting the podcast, one promoting the Instagram page, you know? So I think that if you could have people, you know, other realtors are saying, hey, come follow my page. Don't buy anything. Just come follow my Instagram page.
Exactly. And in fact, we were, because now we do reviews of like local restaurants in our area. We were doing a review of a spot, and we met some guys online. It's a local college by the spot. And so it was him and his father. And we started talking, you know, just how we do. And it turns out they're big into golf. We love golf. We're shooting the shop. And instead of asking for their phone number or any of that, it was like, hey, you got Instagram? Yeah. And before you know it, now they're following us on Instagram, and now we're leaving impressions way past the conversation. And that's where it becomes, you know, I think if you can wrap your head around how powerful that is, I almost want to be like, you know, almost like remove my phone number from everything and just say, hey, just hit me up.
No more business cards.
No more business cards, dude. Like straight up, you know?
No, that's exactly what I do too. I love having people follow me on Instagram. I think that's the best way, because people really get to, I think it's funny, but people love to be creepers. They love to creep on people's page.
Totally. People are creepers.
If you give them permission to creep on your page and, hey, follow me on Instagram, you walk away, you just met them, they're going to sit there for another 3 minutes like, who the hell was that guy? Oh, look, he does a podcast. Oh, look, he's a realtor. You know, like that's when I think that person will definitely get a lot more connected to you, instead of you trying to sell and throw shit down their throat, you know?
Yeah, like you don't have to scream to the world that you're a realtor. Like they will figure that out. You know, I think it's about finding out where you can connect with them, and that's what you should be posting. You know, like I think that's ultimately what's most important. Like putting the problem is you find so many realtors today that are just so ego driven. Like, look at my listing, look at my open house, look at how much my team is doing. And they're forgetting that doesn't bring any value to a potential buyer or seller, other than the fact that like you make, you know, maybe you make some money, but that, you know, the business. Outside of that, it's very, you know, that they're living in that me economy. So
yeah, especially when, I mean, I think real estate in general nationwide is saturated. I think it's very saturated. Everyone has an uncle, tia, aunt, cousin that does real estate, you know? So I have a lot of people, it's crazy, but I have a lot of clients that have that best friend or the uncle or the cousin that's a realtor and decided to go with me instead, because I do pride myself in giving that value. And I think you have to, like, you can't, you really can't just go out there trying to sell stuff, you know? If you start talking about, you know, market trends, if you start talking about buyer's tips of the day, you know, if you start talking about, hey, this house just hit the market, it's a foreclosure, this is how foreclosures work, you know, things like that definitely go a lot farther, I think. And that's where I think a lot of realtors are dropping the ball. Just like you said, you know, it's like, hey, check out my listing. Look at how much we're selling. It's like, no one cares.
I see those ads, like literally I just saw one on Instagram, and it was a very well produced video. I would say he spent a good $2,000 to $5,000 on it. And it was literally him in a Maserati or some nice car pulling up to this real nice listing. And it just hyping up how they did, you know, like closed over 30 million in sales, all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. Like, if I'm sitting there as a buyer or as a seller, like, how does that, I just don't understand. To me, it's a completely, I just look at it and I'm like, man, like you missed the mark on that. Dude, you spend all this money and you're missing the mark. Like, had you have maybe, you know, done a full production video on like showing like the home buying, like literally doing a show around that that purchase, like going in and showing what the getting inside the mind of a home buyer that would bring value to a future home buyer, you know, documenting that process is way more valuable than, you know, you driving around in a, you know, Ferrari pulling up to a oceanfront listing. Like,
and I get it too. You know, I get it. Lifestyle. You're basically selling the lifestyle of what you can have as a realtor. But I think that's where the misconnect is. And that's where I think, you know, 90% of realtors are failing, you know, in their first 4 years, because there's a huge disconnect. They're thinking that in a year, they're going to be driving that same Maserati selling 30 million a year too. And it really is kind of, you know, depressing for agents when they find out how much work needs to go in for you to sell even $1 million in real estate. You know, it's tough.
And obviously that's like, you know, so the average price in Orange County is about, I think it's up to close to about 750,000. And so obviously, you know, in a market like yours, you know, I think what's your average, like, you know,
180, 170, 180. And that's been going up in the last 2 years. When I started real estate out here, it was actually around 125.
Wow.
You know, El Paso is definitely what the hell is the word? You know, we're a lower income city, definitely.
Yeah.
Because of that, though, it's really cool because housing is so affordable for pretty much anyone. You know, first-time home buyers, singles to family. You know, a lot of people could definitely afford houses, but $700,000 is definitely a big difference. You know,
it's a different, and it's funny because now that I'm also in the Vegas market, I see that the Vegas market's very similar to, you know, that lower end price points of, you know, mid 200s. And so it takes 3-4 homes to make the same amount of commission as it does in Orange County.
Right.
And so it's just interesting. I think being in a market that's so heavily, there's so much competition. There's a lot of people running that rat race. So people get caught up in that quote unquote lifestyle marketing, and just kind of forget, like, you know, what we're in this business for. Like, we're here to help buyers and sellers. Like, we're here to genuinely answer their questions and, you know, develop those relationships.
Definitely. Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, it's really just about creating those relationships. That's what I've definitely learned over the last 2 years. You know, it's a big purchase for everyone. You know, it's huge. So for you to really make it about that individual definitely goes a long way. Talk to me, Jon, about some of the takeaways that you got from Agent 2021. What were some of the biggest takeaways that you took away and are going to be implementing in your business?
Yeah, man. I gotta say, like, first of all, I don't know, you were there last year, right? That's what you said.
Yeah, I went the first year too.
And, you know, so I'd been following Gary for probably 2 years prior to showing up to this event. I gotta say, seeing him in person was kind of a huge aha for me, because just seeing him in person was like, dude, I know this guy, you know, like I've been watching this guy for the last 2 years, creeping in the background, and now he's in front of me, and there's this sense of connection. And, like, you know, obviously to me in that moment of seeing him, I realized, shoot, this is what he's talking about, right? Like, people are listening to your podcast, or they're going to start watching your videos, and maybe they're creeping for a year or 2 years or whatnot. All of a sudden they see you on the street, and boom, instantly there's that connection, because, you know, they've been vibing, you know, with what you've been putting out.
Right.
And so I think that was a really huge takeaway for me, because I'd never really been that type of person to, like, you know, I don't know, get starstruck or whatever. But when I saw him, I was like, dude, this is crazy. Like, this is a really trippy thing where you start realizing, because at the level of content he's been putting out, and the quality and the type of it, you realize, like, that's what he's been fostering, is that relationship. And so for me, one of the big takeaways was, you know, how are we going to foster that very same relationship where we're walking on the street somewhere local in our area, and somebody stops and say, hey man, I saw you on Facebook, I saw you on whatever. And I think that's really where the gray area is. It's really interesting. And a lot of people don't understand that value. I mean, I like to say I'm very tech forward and I understand all this stuff, but when I saw him, I think that it really drove home for me of, like, why we need to start leveling up our content creation.
That's insane. That's insane that you said that, because I think, like, as you said that, it clicked for me too, because it's true. Like, you see him and it's like, okay, I've been following this guy every day. I see his stories and posts and everything. And you look up to him, you up to his advice, and then you finally meet him. You finally pay for something, to meet him, and you're there and you're like, oh, like what he's telling us to do is exactly what he's been doing to us, over the last 2 years, providing value, providing content. We have fallen, for him.
Yep.
We love to watch his content, and that's really what it's about. If you could do that in any type of industry, if you're a florist, if you could do that with flowers, with real estate, with whatever you do, and have that recognition where people are stopping you and they're recognizing you because of that, then I think that's where that is at too. I think you could definitely go a lot way.
Well, and I want to touch on a quick point. I think the reason why this is so important and why it's so relevant today is because we have companies like Zillow, Open Door, Purple Bricks. Man, they are right behind us. Like they are going after this, our industry in a real serious way. And I think it's something that, we have to be growing our personal brands in a way that is going to grab attention, because otherwise Zillow and these other guys are going to be grabbing attention and it's going to put us out overnight. Like that's what's going to happen. And I know it's really kind of a dark, dreary thing, but in that they're first in line with Gary, when he started talking a little bit about that, it was very clear that that's where this industry is going.
Yeah.
Like Expedia, the founders of Expedia is the co-founder of Zillow, and look what they did to travel agents overnight. Right.
Yeah.
So we're in the same, and mind you, there's still travel agents still crushing it today. It was those that had really good reputation that stayed in the business. And in real estate, this word reputation is now called personal brand. And it's going to be the ones that have a huge personal brand that are actually going to weather the storm once Zillow and Redfin and all these guys actually, find an end-to-end solution. It's going to be the realtors and the agents that have a huge personal brand and a huge following and know how to grab attention that are actually going to weather that storm.
And this is crazy because I got goosebumps when I heard that too, but it is true. Like Gary said it himself, Zillow's already fucking doing it right now. Yeah. Zillow has all of our clients' information. Zillow is giving us clients. Zillow has all of our information. Zillow's controlling the entire show. So I do agree. Like I do foresee Zillow definitely taking over this industry, in the next couple of years. So 100% to you. I mean, creating that personal brand is definitely going to help these people weather that storm that's going to come. Because with that personal brand, with the YouTube and the podcast and everything that you're doing, you're hitting so many different outlets. And this question came up too. What if Instagram went away? My business is 70% on Instagram, but what if it went away? It's like, these are real questions and real things that can happen. So having that personal brand, not only on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, you have to be in every single platform. You have to be creating that brand, because that's the only way I feel like you're really going to make it in the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it just speaks into not creating friction for the end user, right? Like if somebody prefers audio versus video versus writing, reading, I think we have to be anywhere that the attention is. And that's the point. And so, I got 2 more real quick takeaways. I know we got to kind of start wrapping it up, but, for me, one of the ones that I thought was really interesting was this idea of influencer marketing. And I think that's a very interesting opportunity for real estate agents because, dude, that's way outside the box, right? Yeah. Like you walk into any brokerage today, like they're going to be like, I don't even know where I would start with that. For me, when I saw that, I think he was the beach resort guy that was speaking on, I think it was Boca Raton Beach Resorts. Right. And he was saying how literally they launch resorts predicated off of inviting quote unquote influencers to the island, to their resort for a weekend trip. And that one event launches that resort. Yeah. Like by inviting celebrity chefs, celebrity models, celebrity whatever with a ridiculous following. And that launches that resort. And so then that got me thinking, how can we do that same type of marketing with like an open house or a listing. Like, how can we create an event where we invite local, micro influencers to come and kind of spread the word because you're providing value for them.
Right.
So it was really interesting. I thought that was, so now we're kind of looking on some very unique ways that we can, maybe promote an open house, invite some local influencers that we align with, and see how we can, collaborate. I think that's really interesting.
Influencer marketing is huge. I mean, you look at it like this. If you think, 15 years ago, how much would it cost to get Michael Jordan behind your brand? Well, nowadays, people are just as famous, if not more famous, because of being an influencer on social media. So getting those people, for a couple $100, maybe for free, maybe a favor, behind your product for a 15-second ad, you can go so crazy. Or just an appearance, like you're saying, at an open house can really, set that tone for you for sure.
Yeah, man, it's crazy, and that kind of rolls into my last point, which is being 100,000% your authentic self, and doing it in a way that just highlights who you are. Because, if you try to please everybody, then you end up pleasing nobody. And I think that's what this is about. I think if you can show people who you are, I mean, we live in a day and age where people are going to find out who you are because of your personal profiles, what you put out there. And so to me, that's just such a huge point to drive in is like, I'm not going to do anything that, like I think it's like, if you don't like to wear suits in this business, don't wear suits.
Mm-hmm.
If you like to rock a hat when you go show listings, go rock a hat. If you like to drink whiskey and do a podcast because you get to jive with, and chill with other entrepreneurs, that's what you do. And people are going to be attracted to that. It's the whole, law of attraction, right?
People that need to be attracted to it will be attracted to it, right? You don't want to waste your time trying to attract people that have no need or no business or no interest in what you're doing. And I think that's where a lot of people mess up too. Mm-hmm. Trying to please everyone. It's not going to happen,
No, but it's so prevalent, and I think as real estate agents, we're entrepreneurs. We're, we don't get paid a salary for this, right? Like, we got to go get it. And so it's about like leveling up here and understanding that if you can be your authentic self and be who you are, that's going to allow you, like, it's this concept of, be, do, have, right? I don't know if you've heard of that. You have to be the person you want to be in order to do the things you want, so you can have the things you want. And I think that plays into, in order to be that person, like, you have to be your authentic self.
Right.
Like, 100%. And so, I think that speaks to a lot of people, man. There's a lot of people trying to front nowadays. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think feeding through that fake, I think it's just a lot easier for people to see through that, see through the bullshit. And if you're not being authentic, if you're being fake, it's very, very easy now for people to see that. So people aren't dumb. I think the consumer nowadays is very smart, very, very resourceful. And, they can tell who's bullshitting, who's not, and who's doing it for the right reason. So.
Yeah, man. And so, that's exactly it. And it's just, we're in I would say, Manny, we're living in a very, very interesting time, because in the last 12 years, I've never seen just like the dynamics of what's going on in the market, in the real estate industry. Like legitimately, there's a rising group of people, that don't see value in a real estate agent, period.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's not me or you thinking that. That's like the people. That's like the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Gary talks a lot on letting the market decide and determine. I talk to a scary amount of people that are actually like, so what do you actually do? Right. And then we have to defend ourselves and like go into this mode of like, and so to me, it's to the point where I'm almost even saying, oh shoot, man, like, once technology like blockchain and some of these other future up and coming things come into play, what value are we going to be able to truly bring? And so I think it's a really sobering question, as a agent that's been around enough to see some cycles of like, how are we genuinely going to stay relevant? And honestly, like this whole mantra that Gary's preaching is the answer.
100%. 100%. Yeah. You have to get it. I mean, you have to understand it. You have to get it, because this is really where it's going. And like you said, a lot of people that are starting these things, you know, the podcasts and the vlogs and the Alexa skill, um, these forefront people are just like, you know, Gary was in 2007, 6 when he started his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You know? It's crazy, but that's really how it is. It's
Yeah.
you have to be in the front of these trends, and you know, some people are lazy. Some people don't want to know what's next and know and be ahead of the game, you know, but I think those people that are definitely going to go a lot farther. So it's really crazy, man. Where I know we are kind of wrapping this up, but where do you see the market in the next 5 to 7 years?
Man, I lost you there for like a cool 10 seconds. Can you hear me?
Shit. There's a lot of good nuggets. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Where do you see, we're wrapping up right now, but where do you see the market going in the next 5 to 7 years?
5 to 7. Shoot,
Yeah.
man. I gotta say, I think we hit on this earlier. Like, nobody's got that crystal ball. I think there's a lot of things happening. You know, I don't like to go political often, but I just think there's a lot of things happening that I think we're gonna see some very interesting things, man. Like when it comes to real estate, look, I always tell people like, real estate's it's a long-term play for me, you know, like it's a very emotional thing for me when it comes down to it. It's like you know, we were sold this American dream and buying a home and all that, but ultimately, like if buying a home and, you know, investing in real estate is for you, then like you look at it from a long-term perspective. I think I even myself, as I'm looking to, you know, invest back in Orange County, I'm kind of sitting on the fence myself because I'm seeing this correction and I'm thinking, okay, you know, I think I can come in at a lower price than what's happening. And, you know, I mean, I'm selling homes more than what I was selling them at the height of the recession, prior to the recession. Right. So that's scary. When I sold a $615,000 condo back in 2007 or the end of 2006, and that same condo is now selling for 720. That's kind of a scary thing, right?
Yeah.
So it is one of those things where it's like, man, I can't honestly answer you of where I think the market's going. I just think that it's, you know, you can't, on a 30-year chart, when you're looking at it from bottom left to top right, it's always going from bottom left to top right. So to me, like the entire world would have to be coming crashing down in order for me to not say that buying real estate is a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So like that's just how that works. Like, I mean, even 5 to 7 years, like to me, it's like, why would you even be considering, like if someone asked me that was a potential buyer, I'd be like, why do you want to know? Like,
Yeah.
like if you're planning on short-term investments, like, and you haven't even bought your first home, like, bro, get yourself settled before you start trying to, you know, hustle
Yeah.
investment. Like buy your first home and set yourself up for the future. I'm looking at it from a long-term perspective of like, that's the issue. You know, I think when I was younger, making a ton of money, I should have invested a lot more. Instead, I pissed it away on, you know, going and partying and having fun and, you know, and all that.
Yeah.
Instead, you know, I could have bought 3-4 properties that would all be, you know, 10x by now and all that. So it's about perspective. It's about self-awareness for sure. And saying, you know, why do I want to know what the market's like in 5 to 7 years? Because to me, the place, you know, these places I bought here in Vegas in 30 years, I can tell you, assuming life continues forward and there's no apocalypse, these properties are going to be much more, you know, then than they are today.
Yeah.
And like, that's just like basic, right?
Yeah.
Like there isn't, you don't need to be a financial advisor or some genius. Like there are some very, you know, there's some people I've met that have accidentally become millionaires because they just bought real estate at the right time. Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's fucking insane. Yeah.
You know,
100%, man. That's cool. So ending the podcast, wrapping it up, what is one of the biggest tips that you would give to a potential buyer, somebody that is thinking about buying a house? What's the one biggest tip that you have for them?
Yeah, I think so. The one biggest tip for a buyer that's thinking about buying a home, man, there's so many. Man, you're gonna have to, you put me on blast here. Let me think. Had a little too much. I think I had a little too much of this whiskey.
Did you?
No, man. I think the number one tip that I actually do have for buyers in the market today is, you really have to find and work with somebody you trust. I think that all too often there's a lot of noise out there. I think for a buyer to really feel comfortable, I mean, this is, like you said, this is one of the biggest decisions in your life. Working with your brother's friend that's an agent may not be the best answer. Like, I think it's about working with somebody that like, and trust, and ultimately that's going to hold your hand through the entire process, because this industry is it's saturated with a lot of part-timers or people that are halfway in, and they're not fully, full-time realtors. So one of the number one tips to me is making sure that you trust your real estate agent, because they are going to be really holding your hand. Like, there is no algorithm, there is no, button you can click that's going to allow you to actually have that genuine, I'm looking you at the eye, and you're going to tell me, hey man, is this going to close? Like, are we going to actually, is my family going to move into this house? Is my 50 grand that I put down into a property going to actually close, and is it safe? I mean, that's huge, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it could go so many directions, but for me, it's making sure that you choose a real estate agent that is, somebody you trust 100%.
That's awesome, brother. I agree 100%. I think a lot of people, they do go with that first, recommendation, the cousin's aunt's boyfriend, and that's not always the best option. I've heard a ton of horror stories as you, I'm sure. So
Yes.
Definitely recommend, if you are thinking about buying a house, research, and I would say even interview a couple agents. Don't just sign up with the first agent. See what other realtors are offering in your city, and go off of that. Go off of,
And then secondly, I know that was number one, but I would say right after that, I would say the hugest tip, like probably even bigger than that, is I always tell my buyers that they need to get a DU approval. Which, are you familiar with, DU approvals at all?
I don't think we use that term. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah. It's just like basically their desktop underwriter approvals. So this is something that's it's important, because a lot of people just get pre-approvals, right? So you literally, a pre-approval for a lot of lenders can just be like them looking at your credit score, them looking at how much you make, and then being like, great, here's a pre-approval for $300,000, right? A DU approval is actually it's basically almost an unconditional loan approval, where they're saying, we've gone through your entire file with a fine comb, and now you're basically like, all we got to do is find you that house and you're good to go. Meaning they've done a full background check on everything. And so what happens is a lot of buyers think that a pre-approval is good to go. And then they go in and they buy, they make an offer with the pre-approval. They go 17 days in, and all of a sudden the lender finds out that they got, they find out they got a delinquency, or they got something, because the lender, didn't. It takes time for a lot of that stuff. And so a buyer doesn't know too often the process. And so it's our job to kind of walk them through that. And so that just speaks into being prepared financially. Like, it's a big decision of your life. You better be prepared financially. You better sit down with your lender months before you're even thinking about buying. And in my opinion, if you have that time, get a DU approval, go all the way through, give them everything. So that way there's no surprises when it comes to, the escrow process.
Like I tell my clients, I'd rather let you down now than later. And I think setting that precedent's super important. That's pretty crazy. I know obviously the underwriter process and everything, but I've never asked for a DU approval. So
it's a pretty good tip, man. Like, I mean, okay, granted, can you still go in with an approval and close? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of lenders that.
But it's happened. I've had pre-approvals, and actually last month, day of closing, something came up on credit, and it's just like, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh yeah. And don't finance a new car, when you open a
yeah,
customer.
don't buy your furniture
Don't
before you
buy,
have your house.
go get a Best Buy credit card and buy that 70-inch TV.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, really excited to have you on, brother. Appreciate you taking the time, and really excited for people to kind of hear your story. And you know, real estate doesn't only exist in El Paso; it's everywhere. And lucky enough, we were able to meet you.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Obviously, you have a podcast too, so go ahead and drop off that handle there. But where can people find you on social?
Yeah. So again, granted, we just started a lot of this. We have Agent Podcast, which we just launched 2 weeks ago, where we're basically talking all things real estate, helping realtors level up their social game, and really just documenting our own process through it. We have Live Love OC, which is the community kind of driven local page where we're doing interviews of restaurants, doing highlighting local community members, and just going out and just highlighting Orange County because we love it. And so you can check us out on Live Love OC. And then, yeah, man, like we have, we're based out of Orange County, California, Las Vegas. And so you can check us out, man. We're all over the place there.
Awesome, brother. Again, man, appreciate you taking the time. I'm really wishing you all the best of success for the next 12 years of you doing real estate, man. And really pumped. I'm really pumped. So we should definitely do a follow-up.
Definitely.
A follow-up podcast maybe in the next year or right before Agent 2021 next year. See
Yes.
See what's
Yeah.
changed or see how business is going. But
Yeah,
really
man.
good for you, man. I think you're definitely on the right track as well as on social media, but mentality wise, it's really crazy just to see what you've gone through, what you've seen,
Yeah.
and how it's really prepared you for the next couple of years too. So
Yeah, I'm excited. It feels like I'm starting over with all this, which is exactly, I love it because I know I'm in love with the process, right? Like I'm in love with being able to take ideas and bring them to life, and this idea of content creation and bringing value to buyers. I mean, that's what we're all about. So I appreciate you having me, brother.
thank you so much, brother. Appreciate you guys, and make sure you guys listening and tuning in. Make sure you guys tune in every single Wednesday where we sit with entrepreneurs, business owners, movers, and shakers, just like Johnny here. Again, brother, thank you so much. We'll let you know once the podcast drops, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Thank you, brother.